Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel and welcome to my Basics in Chess series. So in this series we follow opening principles, middle game strategies and the endgame strategies. So we haven't done an endgame for a while, so today we'll do a very important endgame lesson, and this will be the so-called promotion to knight. So of course we can promote to any piece we want. We can promote to a rook, we can promote to a knight, we can promote to a bishop, we can promote to a queen, and most of the times we want to promote to a queen because the queen is the most powerful piece on the board. But sometimes it's not. Sometimes the best piece on the board can be also a knight. So sometimes it's really important to promote to a knight because the knight in that positions gives a decisive check or a decisive tempo, which can create some threats against your opponent, and then your opponent has to retreat, has to make a passive move, and then you get this very decisive tempo, and then you continue into a favorable endgame. So let's see now a couple of examples of this very cool endgame strategy, this promotion to a knight. And the first instructive game that I wanted to show you, it was a game played by Samuel Schweber against Bernardo Wexler. Here we have a very cool endgame, I think, because here you see white has these two connected pass pawns, which are of course main strategical advantage here for white. But here black has this pawn which can always deflect this rook a little bit from the defense of these two pawns, and black's main idea is of course to take out this pawn c6, and then maybe in a couple of moves also to take out this b7 pawn. So here king on d6 played by black. We want to, as I mentioned, to deflect to deflect this rook from the c file and then take this pawn. Here white played c7 anyway, and here black tried this move, this promotion to queen with the move a1, and now white finds a very nice idea here in the endgame. Here we have knight on c8 first with the check, and we have here rook takes on c8. Now again b takes c8 again with the promotion to a knight, because we have now a decisive tempo. Here from black's perspective you can take out the bishop, but now we can simply take the queen, and if the bishop takes, then we go really into a favorable endgame, and of course it's game over here for black. So I said, very important thing to promote to a knight, because you saw that this was really in the decisive tempo that white got in the continuation of the game, and of course this Samuel Schweber, a very good chess player, saw this tactical motif. So let's see now another example. Here it's it's really a critical endgame here. White has again these two connected pass pawns, which is a powerful strategical element in an endgame. But black has a very advanced pawn here on a2, and black is threatening here to promote to queen. And the instructive game that I wanted to show you, it was a game played by David Janovsky against Oscar Hayes. David Janovsky was really a good theoretician in chess, because after him was named a good line in the Queen's Gambit Declined. It's really popular line now these days. I've seen Magnus Carlsen playing the Janovsky variation. So here you see David Janovsky played a very interesting move. He played here the move rook on b7. So see, of course, the idea is after rook takes on b7, for instance, rook takes on b7, then maybe king on c1, then maybe to go here with the rook. And if black tries to promote, we will have these two connected pass pawns, which are basically uncatchable here for the black's rook, and this will be a favorable endgame here for white. So that's why in this position, after rook on b7, here simple promotion was played, but now white has this check on the king, and here king on c1 was played. Rook on c7, we have now a couple of checks. Here white tries to simply push the pawns forward. We have g6, of course, king on f3, rook from b to d6. Now the king has to play forward. Also the black's king has to compete with these two connected pass pawns. You see how powerful these two connected pass pawns are really in an endgame. King on g8 was played by white, queen on a8. Now we have rook on d8, queen on a2, f7. Now you see we have a powerful advanced pawn on the 7th rank, so we are really threatening now to promote here. Rook on f5, rook on d2, now queen on e6 was played. Now getting this pieces more compact. We want now to bring, of course, the king also to the dark squares here and attack this backward pawn here. But now rook from the 2nd rank on d6 was played, queen on a2, and now king on g7. We have queen on b2, king on rook on d4, queen on b7, now king on g8, now queen on a6, and now again rook on d6, queen on a2, and now rook on d7. King on g4, g7 was played, and now king on g5. Now Janovsky finds a very nice idea, first playing the move here, rook on e7. Rook on f6 was played, and this was now the decisive mistake. Here we have really cool endgame played by Janovsky. Here first rook on e5, king on g6, and now a very powerful motif, rook on e6. Now after rook takes on e6, now we have here a very important move, promotion to knight on f8 with the fork on the king and the rook. That's why here king on f5, but now rook takes on e6, and we have now very favorable endgame here for white. We have the pass pawn, we have connected pieces here, and it's of course a completely winning endgame here for white. Let's see the continuation. King on g5 was played. Now we have king on h8, queen on b2, and now knight on h7, king on h4, now rook on h6. We have king on g4, knight on f6. This is a very important move because we have now the check, and we have also covered this very important diagonal because the queen was supporting here the defense, avoiding this g8 move. And now king on g3 was played. Now finally queen on g8 with the promotion and also with the check, and of course this is game over here for black. So you see, very important moment, this fork on the rook and the king to create some tempos to go into a favorable endgame. Here it's also a very tricky endgame. Here you see in the last move white tried here the move e7, and it was a game played by James Tarjan against Ljubomir Ljubojevic, also very powerful grandmaster from the last century. Here very tricky move, this e7, and here you see, if you promote here maybe to queen with the check, then we have queen takes on f1. Then of course you have to take this pawn, and now if we take the bishop, white goes into a favorable endgame here. So that's why here in the continuation of the game, here first bishop takes on g7, g2 was played, pardon me, and here now king on h2. But now first the promotion to knight with its decisive check, bringing the king on a dark square now, which is very important. Now after king on g1, we have now this very powerful move, queen on d4, and now of course queen on f2 had to be played. But now very important discover check here, king on f1 was played, but now queen on d1, and in this position white resigned, because if you cover with the queen, then of course we have here first the check. If you takes, then we can take this pawn on e7, and it's of course game over here for white. So let's see now another very instructive chess endgame, which will end also with this promotion to knight. Here it's a game played by Anatoly Karpov against Jan Timman. Jan Timman, well, he has here a worse position because white has the bishop pair in the continuation of the game. White has 5 pawns, black has only 4 pawns. So here Jan Timman hopes to go for a draw, and he tries now this motif to deflect this rook from the b file and go to promotion here on f1. But here let's see what happened. Rook on g8 was played. Now rook on rook on f3. We have now rook on g3, again with the same motif, deflecting the rook from the g file with the threat to promote on f1. Rook on f5, now rook on g5, rook on f7, now again the same idea, rook on g7, rook on f3, rook on f5, and now rook on g5 again, rook on f5, rook on g5 was played. Now again rook on f8, here rook on g8, but now rook on f7 was played, and now finally rook on g7. And here, well, it was probably Anatoly Karpov calculation maybe here to go into an endgame, which was really unclear, and here Karpov decides to take the rook. Rook takes on g7. We have the promotion to queen, and he takes now this knight. We have now rook and the bishop versus a queen endgame, which is very tricky to play, because with the queen on the board, with this open position, there are always these threats of a check, and black can maybe go into a perpetual check move order, and then maybe go for a draw. But let's see. Queen on c4 was played. Now we have a4, queen takes on e4. We have king on b3, d6. Now finally we have this decisive pass pawn, which will be very important in the continuation of the game. D6, so queen on h4. We have now bishop on b5 with a check. Rook on b6. We have rook on c6. We have king on b7, and now d7. You see, this is now this is a very annoying pawn that black has to handle here. First, bishop takes on c3 was played because here Jan Timman tries to simplify the position, getting rid of this defender around white's king to go into this perpetual check motif. That's why here b takes on c3. c4 was played, and now we have rook takes on c4. Now we have queen on e1, and now very important move here, the promotion to knight. So if you promote the queen, then as I said, we have queen on b1, queen on a1, this perpetual check threat, and that would be of course a draw. So that's why here very important, d8 promotion to knight. We have king on a7, rook on c7 with a check. We have king on b8, rook on d7, queen on b1, of course king on c4. We are going now even with the king into the attack, because when we secure our king, maybe with this pieces around the king, then black won't have any more any checks in the continuation. So that's why king on c4, going toward black's king. Queen on f1, of course. King on d5, queen on f3, now king on d6, now queen on f8 with a check. We have king on e6, queen on h6, but now we're taking another pawn. Very cool endgame here played by the legendary Anatoly Karpov. Queen on e3, now king on d6, queen on f4, and now king on c5, queen on e3, now king on c4, king on c8, and now we have a very important move. Now this knight can transpose to this very important square on d6, and we have also some checkmate possibilities with this bishop, rook, and knight. So it's something that black has to worry about. Queen on e4 was played, but now king on c5, queen on e3. We have now king on c6. Now comes this check, but it's not a problem. Now finally we can hide. There are no good checks anymore for black here. So queen on e3 was played, but now king on a6. We have queen on e6. Now finally knight on d6, king on b8, and now rook on d8, king on c7, and now rook on c8 was played, and this was now game over, because it's you have to take here this knight with the king, and then we have rook on c6. Then you have to move the king, and this is now of course this is now of course a favorable endgame. We can simply go for promotion here with this a pawn, and Anatoly Karpov has a decisive pawn here in the endgame. So as I said, a very important thing, this promotion to knight. Sometimes it's possible. You see, this tempo is really important in the continuation of the game, so don't forget about it when you play your own endgame. It's really not always that you have to promote to queen. It's also possible to promote to a bishop. Sometimes you see why in some other endgame videos, and it's also possible to promote to a rook. So these are really this sort of little bit paradoxal things in chess, but this I think were really good examples, and this knight, who after that, as I mentioned, got this very important tempo in the game. Okay, meanwhile you can watch my other best basics in chess videos with some other opening principles, mid-game strategies and end-game strategies, and you can also watch my chess tactics and chess puzzles videos if you want to see the best chess tactics that can happen in a chess game, and you can also subscribe to my channel. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.